Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma and I'm chatting with writer Shane Crowley about his powerful psychological thriller, God's Creatures. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Not a bother. Thanks for having us, Gemma. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. So, it's a very interesting story. But first, I'd like to give yourself as a writer a bit more context. Tell me about your background.
So yeah, I guess my background is, I before writing this screenplay, I had no grounding in the world of film or aspirations to be a screenwriter or a writer as such. I originally would have studied an arts degree in UCC that became a master's in history way back in 2009. So I graduated originally in 2010 at a great time altogether for it. So you can imagine what I was imagining with my life. So then I was me and a couple of buddies opened a restaurant in Killarney, I think called the Pay As You Please restaurant. And I was working there for a year or two as a waiter. And took a bit of a break, went around New Zealand and Australia, cycling around the place, as you do. And as I was doing that, I was just writing these emails, kind of like a blog, and sending them to friends and family just to keep in touch. And one of those friends, who I've known since I was 12 years old, happened to be Saela, the producer of God's Creatures. Now, she was doing a master's in producing in the NFTS film school over in London at the time. And I'd say she was looking to build up a slate of her own ideas. So we're both from the same part of Kerry. She's from Creagh, I'm from Killarney, these two small towns kind of hugging the coast. But her family are oyster farmers and fishermen, and she had always wanted to write a film based in that world because she knew the epicness and the kind of sense of, just the danger of these men being out on the tide, on the sandbanks as the tide is coming and going. So she wanted to kind of find a story based on that. And she brought me into a dialogue about maybe coming up with this story based on these emails that I had written. So it's pure random kind of entry into the world, really, of screenwriting for me. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I hadn't a clue. I remember I downloaded this kind of Celtex software on my laptop.
Yep.
A laptop that I'm actually still using to this day. It's 11 years old. That shows you how tight I am. But no, I guess we came up with this story that was kind of about these oyster farmers have a very subsistence type sort of living that off the sea, and the changing nature of that as the family are moving into more modern times. So I think we wrote the screenplay originally about that. It was more like a short story, like these big block chunk texts that were not easy on the eye. But I used that. We didn't get funding or anything for it, but I used that to get into film school, the same film school that Saela went to, the NFTS, probably around 2014 or 15. Then it was when I went there that I guess the possibilities of actually being a professional screenwriter maybe started to become more reality, because I was learning how to write a screenplay. I wrote a couple of short films while there, and also you get professional development, through mentors and stuff while in the school. So yeah, it's probably while there that I, just started learning the skills of, screenwriters, I suppose, in commas. But yeah, that's kind of my background. So then after going through the film school, myself and Saela came back to this idea that is God's Creatures. And not that we readapted what we had, but we started talking about things that were happening in Kerry and all over Ireland, these instances of, small towns, protecting rapists and, silencing and ostracizing, victims of sexual assault who dare to speak up against it. So then we readapted what we had to kind of match or those intentions, if that makes sense.
That's very interesting. So you were saying you initially came up with this document, and that would have been more was it a short story? Was it a treatment of sorts?
No, it was an attempt of a script. As I said, this Celtex is what, I don't know if it's still around but it was like a final draft kind of software that you just, it was free online. So I was able, that's why I used it. So we originally had a script I wouldn't dare go back and look at it for, the shock therapy it would probably put me through. But no, it was an original script that was 2013. I think we the first attempt that we wrote that. So yeah, the summer of 2013. I think a very sweaty development session in an apartment in London because it was so hot. I remember over there. But yeah,
That's fabulous. So that like that just shows as well how you were sort of inadvertently going in this direction, whether you knew it or not, in some ways as well. Like all that life experience pushing you towards it, which is really, really interesting. So tell me then about the development process. So you would have graduated, you decided to come back to this. You said there was no money to get the first draft across the line, but like I mean, like it's I think this is a fabulous process to see because like I know you work so hard on a project, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then so often it just like falls at some point and never gets back up again. So it's really lovely to have that story about this was an earworm that didn't go away between the pair of us. This is something that we really believed in enough to come back to and adapt and change. So it's fabulous.
yeah, yeah. I would say, I mean, to be fair about it, I'd have to give Fowler probably the sole credit on that because I mean she made Lady Macbeth, a great film in 2015 that got great traction. It went through iFeatures with the BFI or BBC? I think it's BFI, isn't it, over in England? So that she had great success with that, and off the back of that, she just had an inherent belief in this idea that we were pursuing, and maybe after college when I moved back to Ireland into my parents' house again. And I wasn't, like, as I said, I wasn't making, we weren't funded at that stage yet in 2017. So it was very tricky for me to commit to writing it because there was absolutely a point where I thought this is a little bit pointless because I need to actually, make money and not focus on the script anymore. But Fola adamantly wanted us to pursue this idea and to just knew the potential and importance of this story. And yeah, she pushed me to just commit to it, probably, and without her belief and encouragement, I probably wouldn't have pursued it at that time. I think it was around 2018 that we got our first funding from Screen Ireland. So I mean, that was 5 years of this idea. I mean, from the first initial draft in 2013 to, probably around 5 or 6 rewrites at that stage up until 2018 where I earned nothing. So that was a massive, frustrating time for me. But then, I mean, in hindsight, it's great. Like, I mean, the project got made. So that was a big commitment. Yeah, for sure.
And I think as well, you're learn, like I'm speaking from my own perspective, but you like the more drafts you do, I find the more you learn, like the more you gain experience, the more you kind of comprehend the story. Like, I think
Oh, yeah.
when I first started out, I thought, oh, I really naively thought everyone just wrote one draft of everything. I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
it got made. I was like, why isn't my stuff getting made? And I was like, because it's
Yeah.
terrible. And then like I think you understand like actually it takes so much digging to really like get to terms with the character, the structure, the world, the universe. But I think that's
Yeah.
something this film I definitely want to go and dig into the story element more. And but I want to just I love the process of how it
Mm.
developed. So you guys got Screen Ireland development funding 5 years ago, I presume it would have been
It was
the
about 5 years ago, yeah. And we around the same time we were working with an amazing script editor over in England, Sarah Golding, who I probably don't give enough credit to be honest with you. I often forget to mention her. Because she really she worked with Fola again on Lady Macbeth, but she whipped what was this idea that we had about, with myself and Paula, we came up with the idea of the son, the prodigal son, away in Australia, coming back into his mother's house, and the changed nature of their relationships over the time that he's been away, and the accusation then that's made. So we had that idea, but we worked very closely in that with a script editor, and she gave us a structure and put manners on the script, and again taught me how to write a screenplay very much from the ground up again. So yeah, I think it's interesting you said there, the more you write drafts, the more drafts you write, the more you learn. I think the more you work with people, as well, the more you learn to, uh, you have to let go of certain things as well. Like, I think when you're writing something alone, like there's the tendency to believe in your own ego and in your own genius or something like that. Like, but then very quickly when you get talking to people about it and they start picking holes in your thinking, you're like, shit, I didn't think about that. So it's like the more people you bring on board to a project, like at those stages, in those early stages, particularly like a script editor or a producer or a director, creative voices, just like to like really earnestly embrace that and to abandon. As a young screenwriter, that was probably the biggest thing I learned, was to take on board those notes and other people's creative input and the importance of that. If that makes any sense at all, I kind of ramble there,
Oh
but
no, that is brilliant. I'm forever asking people, how do you deal with notes? Because especially if I think if you're kind of longer in the tooth and have been around, you're like, all right, your idea is going to get like hammered with notes. And like sometimes they're from a really good place and that person knows their stuff. Sometimes it's like random stuff. And it was like, how do you decipher it? How do you understand how do you make it mean stuff to your script? And like my thing is like almost every note, even if it's not right, has value underneath it. So that's why I'm very interested to hear how you process it, because especially if it's something that you've been like hammering away at for all those years, like as this labor of love, and then all of a sudden people are like, that's not working. You're like, but that's my favorite bit.
yeah, I mean, there's so many moments like that over the course of time where I thought there's no way that this film can exist without that one small moment. But then you very quickly forget about it and you move on. I think yeah. I've definitely buried those kind of, they're not traumas, but yeah,
The darlings that were killed
yeah,
along
the
the way. Yeah.
darlings, like the tendency to throw, throw a strap and throw all, to fall on the ground. But yeah, no, I think ultimately, I'm not sure if every note from everyone deserves like attention,
Yeah.
particularly for a young writer, because it can be overwhelming. So that's where I think, and again, to come back to maybe talking about working with Fola and the script editor and the directors, they filter certain notes, and then maybe they come to you then after like that initial kind of, feedback, say from financiers and stuff like that. So I think maybe for like based on my experience, there probably was a good bit of that, which probably helped me in the writing of the script, because if I was listening to every note, I'd say I would have lost my
Oh,
mind.
mad.
So not to like, sound like a drama queen or anything like that,
No,
but
because it
yeah,
hurts as well. Like, I think when you're like, no, I'm so proud of this draft. No, this
yeah,
is the one now. And they're like, no, it's
yeah,
not. The action
yeah,
happens too late or too early. And it was like the midpoint is in the wrong place. And you're like, that
yeah,
means nothing to me. But no,
yeah,
I totally get that. The,
yeah.
so as the writer, then you go back, you rework it. You got your development funding, you got to rework it with a script editor. Then are you involved with the process? Like, are you going with your producer to go try and secure funding then to pitch sessions and things like that? Or do you kind of
Um,
sit in a room and wait for news?
Fola took on the reins of getting funding for the film and applying to Screen Ireland. Yeah, so I was definitely not engaging with the pressure of that. Yeah.
So you get to be shielded from all those like pitch. You're not kind of yielded out where they're like, oh, look at this writer.
Yeah, I mean, you're shielded from it, but at the same time, you're also, because you're writing a lot before you're getting funded, so you're taking part in the gamble that way anyway. So there was a lot of work that went into the project before there was any funding. So you're still taking a risk, but yeah, no, like I didn't do any work on trying to get the funding for the film. Yeah,
and you wouldn't be putting together like pitch decks or
I worked
like
on
things like
pitch
that. Yeah.
documents, all right. Yeah, I worked on pitch documents. I worked on treatments, log lines. I did writer's notes. So I did chip into like those documents, but like then in terms of the visual references and the kind of more detailed, what did you call them? Not the sketchbooks, but uh, the decks. Yeah, I didn't work on those. They like I think our directors when they come on board, they put together an amazing deck with Fola and stuff like that. So yeah, I wasn't involved in that. I wouldn't have had the I suppose like you know because it's funny. I don't have a director's brain at all. So I think like I don't. Not that I don't visualize the script as I'm writing it, but I don't like you know see it in pictures and stuff like that. The way they put together like in their deck board. But yeah, sorry again, I'm rambling. But
No, 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 no. It's very interesting, and it is like, and it does paint like a really, really good picture of what it's like. Because I just, like some people maybe they might love to be on set. Like, would you go on set? Would you have like to been around for casting, or were you like, no, I'm done now. My pen is put down. My feet are
I
up.
think yeah. So I like when the directors came on board in 2019 and like November 2019. They came to Ireland like that later that month, and just kind of stayed with me for a week or two, myself and four of the four of us. And we just again that was a period of time of us just getting to know each other creatively and living in the environment of Kerry to kind of to show them the world that we wanted to kind of like capture and film. So I think that process very like we became quite like very close and we became friends almost instantly. I remember I picked Anne and Celia up in Shannon Airport in my father's van, and on the drive down, like the first time that you're sitting with these people kind of in close environs, I was just making a bit of small talk. I asked Celia like, "Oh, you're an editor. You hardly know this editor and an Irish editor over in New York called Connor." Like because I mean New York is a massive city, like of millions and millions of people. It's like Connor, yeah, Connor McBride. I know an Irish editor, Connor McBride, but it's not the same person. It's like, oh, that's my first cousin. So like I think very quickly we got along so well that then I like felt it was just such an easy working relationship with them afterwards that I worked minutely on the script in terms of like shaping it towards their kind of vision and specificities and stuff like that. So I traveled to New York for 10 days in June of the following year. And just because of our very good working relationship, I was on set every day. I was in rehearsals with the actors. When they all landed into Donegal in the middle of that harsh lockdown in March 2021. I had nothing to do with casting. So yeah, thank God, because if I did, God knows alone who would have been picked. But yeah, no, I worked. Well, not that I didn't have any input while I was in set. I was probably like an awkward, shadowy presence.
But you were the on-set Kerry consultant, is it?
The Kerry consultant, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, like Emily might come up and because she speaks a bit of Irish in it, and she'd whisper the Irish in my ear, and she'd be like, "Is that okay?" And I'd be like, "Perfect, mighty stuff." But yeah, no, I was just there kind of in case there was any like questions or stuff like that. But also, I guess because myself and Fola had worked in it for so long that yeah, it was a really just cool thing to experience, after it being a baby, like our baby for so long, and then to let it go, it was class.
Do you feel as well like working on a project from just such early stage and then continuously working on it for that long? Do you kind of like stepping back now and watching it as the final product that it has become and this final piece of artwork with these creatives, can you see how it changed over the periods, like from that original pitch document? Like, was there anything maybe that surprised you about that process?
Yes, and no. I mean, I think our initial instinct in terms of wanting to, like myself and Fola, when we like started unpicking the nature of, the gender violence within these small communities and the way, men are given a long leash and like communities kind of implicitly just kind of protect them. I think that was always there, and that was like, that never changed, but it probably maybe like in the process of developing it with Anna and Celia when they came on board, based on their intentions and what they wanted to what they wanted to make the film about. It's like it maybe became, not that it was procedural before, but like the it became just a much more psychological investigation into this mother and son character. I think if that makes sense. Like it's not a courtroom drama. It's not. I don't think like the film is a question about who done it. Like by any standard, it's pretty clear. So I think it just became about the psychological impact of a kind of a mother lying to protect her son and like just tracking that like maybe that was surprising for me because I mean in like even just describing it there, I'm a 34-year-old man. I like people probably don't think like would assume that that's not like the easiest thing for someone to imagine and to follow. But yeah, it was an interesting process and discovery to go on the writing of that with Anna and Celia and Fola because when we started going down that direction with it, you aren't alone with it, is what I would say. It was like it was a dialogue between the four of us. So like it was, yeah.
Do you feel like it was more of a shift of kind of characters in that iteration of it, like that it moved from maybe focusing on one element of the story to another? Because I always find that process very intriguing. Do you know, like how things maneuver and change?
Mm. Yeah, I think it definitely went into Aileen's story more, 100% the mother. Once Anna and Cillian came aboard, and once we like started to focus on what the actual like what we're interested in telling, like this, how does it how does a like at what point would a mother not lie or not protect her rapist or her rapist? So like when does loyalty become toxic? Yeah, I think like that probably did surprise me a little bit. But then again, I think that's in the nature of what myself and Fola initially set out to kind of unpick.
Watching it sort of play out, was there anything that changed in that? Like, was there any, say, things that the characters or actors brought to the performance that surprised you as well? I think I always am surprised by the depths and things that actors can find.
Yeah, I mean, big time. I mean, when they started putting it to life, I think yeah, you just start seeing the implications of what you're writing all this time. Like, as in when Paul and Emily are and the directors are having a conversation about the minutiae of these characters' thoughts, and then you realize of actually like the depth to which Anne and Cilly had thought about everything. And I mean, I like similar just to the way I did in writing it. But I wasn't like I don't think I stepped in and had those dialogues with the actors because that wasn't my role. So yeah, and in terms of the finished product, yeah, I mean, it is absolutely kind of it rings true to I think what we were trying to write or do with the screenplay. I think anyway.
As a writer, how do you sort of develop, like now that you've kind of come through the mill and had like, and which is amazing, your first kind of thing produced to that
Yeah,
scale, and not just produced like, but produced to that scale under that talent and seen by so many people, because I suppose the themes are so timely and relevant, and
mm,
with what's happening in the world now, post lockdown, post Me Too, like it is like it's definitely the time for it is now, when originally like it was probably there but like not as relevant.
yeah. Um, how do I approach development? I don't know, to be honest with you. I think it's just like, I mean, I'm working on a script now again with Fola, the producer.
You chat about your idea, right? And you
Yeah,
go, all right, now I've bookmarked from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 to workshop this and to do this. What do you do? Do you sit down? Do you draw out character maps? Do you just start typing? Do you picture the characters and go wash the dishes? Like what is your like
yeah,
actual
like
process?
I think, I mean, so like I'm writing a script now, but like we did work initially on quite a long treatment. So I think we sit down and we talk about 100% first, and we talk about the characters, and the ideas that we're interested in pursuing. Just like say with God's Creatures, the idea of like our first conversation would have been about one of our first conversations about with God's creatures would have been about a small town protecting a rapist. Like I know, like how do we investigate that? So with this new idea, similarly, this idea that we have, then just talking around it and trying to find the characters, then yeah, we come to some sort of agreement. I think I go away, I wake up at about 8:30 in the morning, make the coffee, do a Sudoku on the back of the Irish Times, get the brain juices flowing, then write for a couple of hours. Yeah.
And is it like what they see in the in TV show where someone's like or is it more like
No, it's
yeah.
up and down, and looking at the keys and like pressing maybe like because I type like
Mm.
I'd say with maybe 2 or 3 digits in each hand, but not smashing the keyboard.
And are you playing out, like, this is another thing it's about process. Are you like playing out the scene in your mind and trying to describe it? Are you describing it in a way that, like, what's happening? Are you visualizing it like in your brain and how you translate that onto the page?
I I've never over like I mean this might sound really pretentious. I don't think I've ever over intellectualized what I've done like that. Like I just sit down and I write. Um, and I like obviously you're trying to draw out drama or tension in a scene, or you're trying to create it. Um, and you think you're doing it. So you write your scene or you write it out. You're like your chunk of text. You try to get to the end of the scene or the sequence, and you read it back, and then you're like, all right, that's a ball of crap. I've got to go back and do something else with it. Or you're like, oh, that's great, and you send it off to your producer, the development executive, and you're waiting for feedback. And then like you get your feedback, and you have to rewrite the whole thing, or you have to redraw the whole thing.
And so you get feedback sequence by sequence.
No, I wouldn't. It's usually like full script or acts or something like that. So you might send an act, get feedback, or you'd send a full script or something like that. Yeah, I don't think like with the treatment, it's a little bit different because the treatment is like such broad strokes. So then, when you get into the nitty gritty of what's in a treatment, like the gaps between like paragraphs, that's where you like the scenes are and the kind of like your kind of drama is. So then, yeah, just sitting down with a script is mind numbing sometimes in terms of just like sitting at your laptop and looking at the final draft and thinking, how do I get from A to B? And I just think it's a journey of kind of blind faith a lot of the time. And then in the process of development and like sending it off to your producer or your development executive, they're telling you what's working and what's not working, and you're going back and you're trying again. I do a lot of running and cycling in the time periods between you like working on a draft and sending it to and getting feedback. And I find that helps me a lot with thinking. It just kind of, I mean, I like again, I don't want to over intellectualize it or overthink it, but it just helps me to unblock sometimes like problems that I have with the script.
Yeah, no, the reason why I ask, I'm just very interested in other writers and how they actually, because it's so different, like people's processes are so different. Like I noticed I was editing while I was writing, and it was making the writing process really like tedious and
Yeah,
difficult. So when you have that like analytical brain plugged in and you're writing a sentence and then you're editing it as you're writing it, what comes out is great, but it takes ages and it's very unpleasant. So I was like, all right, well, I'll stop doing that. And then as soon as I stopped doing that, it was more enjoyable. It was
yeah,
quicker. Go
yeah,
back and edit it at the end, and the whole process was there. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was doing it. So I'm also very interested. Like some
yeah.
people are visual thinkers, some people are auditory, some people like hear their characters as they talk, some people are like, oh, this would be a beautiful, like I'm just curious to like,
Mhm.
I just, people are so different.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine wearing the hat of an editor, like while working on a script, like because like an editor, you're like, it's just such a different thing, isn't it? Like I think that like even the screenplay for God's Creatures is very different to a certain extent from the film, like the edit of the film. So like they basically rewrite the film in the edit. So yeah, I would imagine that would be if you've got your editing brain while you're trying to write, like that would be kind of frustrating. All right, I'd imagine. But yeah, I think maybe it's just because I'm lazy. I have no interest. Not like I don't want to know what it's like, maybe to a certain extent, for to direct something or to edit something, because I find that I don't know why I'm able to write a screenplay or something like that, but I just find I'm able to write scenes, not naturally, but just from, like, you read enough screenplays and stuff like that, you kind of get a sense of the flow of things. But like I read the script for After Sun, and again, it's quite different to the film itself. So there's some discoveries that they made, I would say, in the actual filming of it that isn't going to be reflected in the screenplay. So yeah, I think they're, like, as you say, very different process, writing a screenplay, and compared to, like, directing it or editing it. And yeah, again, I'm rambling. I'm not making sense,
No,
but
no, 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 no.
I'm
That's
not.
very true.
I'm not. You like, when you're writing a script, I think you've got to be little bits of everything. You've got to be thinking about sound. You got to be thinking about images, and then you got to be thinking about like, the voices and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you have to wear, like, you got to be auditory, you got to be visual, you kind of have to be all those things, or you try
All
to
the
be.
and kind of get it down on the page and have that experience being there. Do you also find your characters change, or like your character, like, I mean, I know they probably changed a little bit to fit that changing story, but would you, once you have them locked in, know them through and through? Would you be writing stuff and they'd surprise you?
Yeah, that's a good, that's an interesting question, because I mean, Fola and the directors would probably disagree with me now, because we worked on the script and on the story for so long together. But I kind of think that the two characters, the mother and the son, like, fairly, like, are fairly solid throughout the history and the development of the project. Like, in terms of my feelings about them, anyway. Like, just because I know that, like, I feel like I know these people in the town where I grew up. Like, I mean, they're not related to me. They're not one identifiable people, but they're bits and bobs of different people. So I feel like I felt like I very much knew them from the first draft, and, like, they obviously changed and developed and became richer, and, like, their actions became more layered. But I think that's, like, we took them on that journey, from the get go. We were taking them on that journey, but they kind of stayed the same. So yeah.
And if you could go back now and be like, all right, shorthand, this will save you so much time. Here's all my lessons I learned, to the person that wrote that like treatment, was it 10 years ago now? What would your advice be to yourself? Like, what's the kind of best bits of knowledge that you've picked up, like, by doing that process?
Um, I would say trust the people you're working with. Because, again, I must have written about 40 drafts of this screenplay, and you are blind to the script at a certain stage. And again, probably because it was my first experience writing a screenplay, that I was probably very critical, and like, didn't see, like, I probably, for a long time, I didn't think it would ever get made, probably, but just because of my own inexperience. So if I could go back now, and say to that young lad writing that treatment back in the day, I'd tell him to, look, listen, enjoy your few nights out. Don't, like, go to Puck Fair. Like, don't stay at home trying to write the script. It'll get made. Like,
But you don't know that though. You like, and
yeah,
it
exactly.
so
But
often it doesn't, like,
yeah,
that's what's so amazing. But like, you did, but yeah, but like that, like, have enjoy it and relax as you're.
enjoy the process a little bit more, because yeah, I think that's what I try to say. And try to enjoy the process a bit more than you maybe sometimes didn't. Because it was, particularly in the early days, it was just probably related to the fact that you aren't earning any money. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, try to enjoy the process, because it is a privilege when you do get into development. I think it's the differences between development and, like and getting funded from Screen Ireland, like the magic of that, like that was such a, like the pressure was off really then.
And it was someone else has bought into your vision. Like
Yeah,
money talks, do you know? Like at the end of the day, people be like, "Oh, that's lovely. Here's a few notes." But like when people really invest, that's them like saying, "We believe in this as well." Like,
yeah, yeah,
which is amazing.
yeah. So yeah, I think just like try to give them an old pat on the shoulder and say, "Don't worry about it." That I think that's what I'd say.
So is there themes now that you said you're working on your next project? Is there anything that maybe you'd like to explore? I think I was looking at other interviews where you said maybe you'd be tempted to write a play or do something like that. Is there other avenues that you want to explore, themes?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I mean, I'd love to write a book or a play. I mean, I've written drafts of both a book, of a play and a book that are big balls of crap, that will probably never see the light of day. But no, I'm interested in.
The Arts Council Literary Fund is coming up in July. So if you
Oh,
put together an application for that, you can get up to 20 grand to write your
oh,
book.
but there
Yeah,
you
yeah. Well, my
go.
friend, my friend got it. She had never been published before, but she's brilliant. Like she had put her shorts published, do you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
but like that, like, I mean, you've proved you could deliver long form projects. So I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. No,
chuck
you
your hand
listen.
in
You
the mix.
never know, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry
I
for
think
interrupting.
no,
Go,
no,
go ahead.
no, not at all, not at all. I think in terms of like themes, I mean, I'm definitely interested in Irish stories, kind of around, in contemporary kind of settings and stuff like that, and rural Ireland, just because I'm like, this is the part of the world I'm from. Particularly like I guess like our relationship to land in the present time is very interesting. Like, going through a massive housing crisis, and like it seems to be like a repeated beat in the history of the country, like, considering like, you know, the land acts of the late 1800s and early 1900s and stuff like that. And like, it's just, I'm interested in that part of our history and dramatizing that to a certain extent. And yeah, I like, there's a whole sweep of themes, I guess, in terms of like modern Ireland. I'd love to do something that's a little bit lighter in tone, dark comedy, maybe as well, pursuing that. Yeah, I like again, like I mean, I have an agent now. I have an agent in the UK and in America. So you're pitching TV ideas, and film ideas to financiers as well. Like so I'm doing a lot of meetings at the minute, and I do probably find that, yeah, I like you try to pitch like more general ideas that aren't specific to places, but inevitably, I just come up with these characters that are like just Irish, I think, and like they like there's one about an Irish guy in Iraq during the occupation. So I don't know why, but it's just like that. I'm interested in, yeah. I probably start from characters, like rather than themes, I think. Yeah, so like that's probably the way my writer brain works.
Like with regards to TV shows, would you kind of lean into the dark comedy? What would be your likes, like in your
Yeah, well, I mean, I think probably the greatest bit of television that people don't know about or haven't watched is probably Better Call Saul, to my
oh,
mind, which I just, yeah, it was more so than Breaking Bad as well. Even I don't know, there was just something about that show that even just the pacing of it and the tone of it, I mean, it just like it clicked with me. So yeah, the dark comedy and drama of that is something that I'd love to, and I try to mimic, or that not mimic, but to, because yeah, it's to find a world for something like that with an Irish character in it, which is this Irish guy in Iraq idea, that I don't
cool.
probably don't want to talk too much about.
No, 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 no,
But
no. It's
but yeah, no, but then
yeah.
again, 100% like you.
Anyone
I
with a
mean,
checkbook though, maybe
yeah, I mean
send you an
it's
all email.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like it's ridiculous of me talking in this way anyway. I mean, because firstly, I have absolutely no experience of writing for television, uh, and yeah, I mean, like, you know, I would love to get the opportunity, probably more than anything, to write, write, but to be part of a writers' room probably as well. So yeah, I'm because this is my first script and it's a film for film. I mean, I'd love to get experience in the world of TV, probably before realistically you get any shot at like writing your own thing. So yeah, that's probably what I'm going through now, in terms of my professional development, with the agent and stuff like that, with the agents. So yeah, it's a learning curve. Like, it's very different to working in film. But again, I'm very much enjoying the process of, writing the film with Frola. I think we're funded by the BBC for this one, development funding, and Screen Ireland as well. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, no, it's such a privilege to be doing it. Yeah, I wish I could talk about it all a little bit more, but unfortunately, I'm not able.
NDAs. But that process is very interesting. And do you feel like now, like when you're going to meet funders, like now you are in the room, you're trying to pitch things more, you're trying to pitch your ideas and your shows. Like there's an element of sales to it as well. Do you know, like where you're like
Yeah,
it's a different skill set completely to, putting together the documents and writing. I'm just curious to how you're finding
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I absolutely ham up my Irishness, and my like. I just try to have a little bit of fun with them to a certain extent, and just kind of be like, yeah, like. So I've got these two ideas that I pitch. One is a bit more serious. It's about this kind of story about land and a family being booted off it. And then it's this Irish guy in Iraq, which is a bit of crack. This idea.
I would have pictured it the other way around now from the
Yeah, yeah,
description.
yeah. So I just try to, like, engage them based on my voice and my the reason why I want to tell these stories, and they're specific to me. And I think people respond to that, like my hammy Irishness. I think people do probably respond to that a little bit. I think Irish writers and writing is going through an amazing moment at the minute in terms of film and television. So, there's like a lot of doors are opening for the likes of myself. So then, you pitch those ideas, and there is interest in them. So then the pressure's on to actually deliver something, like a detailed treatment that I had two treatments that I'm trying to work on now and get out. And that's actually where the hard work is then, trying to be, harsh with yourself in terms of your schedule and your work ethic. But that's the process, or that's
That's
my process anyway.
very interesting. That's so like I better let you go, but I could be picking your brain all night. There's
Yeah.
loads of gems in there, but thanks so much and congratulations. Like it was such a gorgeous, intense, sort of timely piece. It was like such a gorgeous film. Are you thrilled watching it on the big screen and the reaction?
Listen, I mean, I'm very proud of it, and just particularly, I suppose, like, the fact that I got the chance to work with, one of my best friends, Anna and Silly as well, just great people, and, an amazing cast and crew. Just, I think that is the thing that you're most proud about, and then that people are responding to the work that you all did together. Is yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, thank you so much for chatting with us. That's brilliant. And congratulations. And you'll have to come back now when your BBC film is across the line, when you can talk about it. Good luck anyway, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Gemma.
Bye.
Cheers.